Hi everyone, hope you are doing well. Welcome to the next video on my YouTube channel. My name is Saurabh Bharti, Microsoft Dynamics 365 professional. It's a continuation of one of my series where I'm talking about the Copilot agents. Now, till now, in the previous parts, we have covered the basics that what Copilot Studio is, that how do you can configure and create your agent, publish your agents, and different concepts. Now, I thought like since we work in the Microsoft Dynamics 365 finance and operations, now it would be good like if we can switch our direction and understand that how you can connect this Copilot Studio with your F&O data, and then you can query that data so that it sets up a base for us to create and build agents for the Dynamics 365 finance and operations. So today's objective is to understand what are the steps to connect the data of finance and operation, and just see a quick demo from the Copilot Studio to query that data. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. As you all know that anything which is shared in this video is on my personal capacity. It doesn't have anything related to my employer. Okay, now before we start talking about how it can be configured, so I have just tried listing out the list of configurations which we need to do. So first thing is the Dynamics 365 finance and operation data can be connected with the Copilot Studio using the virtual entities which you have for finance and operations. So virtual entities gets published in your Dataverse. So Copilot Studio can connect with the Dataverse, and the Dataverse will have all the finance and operations virtual entities. And these virtual entities are nothing but these are the finance and operations data entity where the data of finance and operations gets published into these data entities. So first thing is, which means we should be able to connect the Copilot Studio to this data source, which is your virtual entities. So to do so, we have one application for that. We need to install that in our Power Platform Admin Center. Once that is installed, we need to configure that virtual entity source in the finance and for the finance and operation in the Power Platform environment setting. Now to do so, there are certain prerequisites where you need to create one app registration in Azure, then create a client secret and add certain API permissions, which I will be talking about. And once that is done, then add that client ID which you create as part of your app registration into the system admin in the enter ID application, so that what you have created in Azure is connected in F&O, and those details are used in your Power Platform Admin Center the environment setting to connect the source for finance and operations virtual entity. Now, once that is done, then you need to enable your virtual entities, because there can be many virtual entities which are available in Power Platform. And then those, whatever is required, let's say if I want to query customer data, vendor data, inventory data, so I need to enable those virtual entities to connect with that data source. So these are the key configurations which we need to do. So now let's dive into this and see how we can configure each of them. Now, the first step was to have the virtual entity app installed in Power Platform Admin Center. So I'm into my Power Platform Admin Center, and I'm into the environment where I want to install this. So I can click on this Dynamics 365 apps. And here, what you need to make sure that you have this virtual entity installed here. If you don't have this, then what you can do is you can always click on this install app, and then it will provide you the list of applications which are available, and you can install this in your required environment. So that is the point number one to start with. Now, how do I know that this is being installed? So then you can go to the make.powerapps.com, and here you will be finding that you have the solutions. And under the solutions, you go to all solutions, and you will find that this Dynamics 365 ERP virtual entities are installed here. So these are the first two key steps which you need to do in terms of installing the virtual entity app. Now the next thing which is required for us is to configure. Now we have these virtual entities. How do you connect with the Dynamics 365 F&O? What configurations are required? So first thing is you need to configure that source in the Power Platform admin, Power Platform environment settings. So what you can go to, you can go to your CR, like all the CRM, the Dataverse apps which are there. And how you can do that is that you can get a URL of your environment, and then there you will find one of the app which is your Power Platform environment configurations here. Now here we need to configure the virtual entity as a source. So we go to admin, and here we will find out the virtual entity data source here. So we can click on this. Now here you will find different data sources which are available and which are possible to configure for our Power Platform. But what we are interested right now is to configure the finance and operations. Now you need to click on this, and you need to provide further information, because then you need to have any client ID, app registration information for this to configure. So once you click on this, let me switch to my PowerPoint and show you what and how you can configure them. So now once you click on this finance and operations, and what will happen, it will take you to the next page where this will open up. Now what you are telling that you have the app installed. Now that app you need to configure the source, which means from which environment you want to connect those virtual entities. Now you need to configure those entity for a specific environment. So that information you map it here. So you map what is your target URL, you map your authorization URL, tenant ID, all these informations you need to get it from a prerequisite, which is called as your, you can say, the app registration and other things. Now to get your, let's say, application ID, tenant ID, or app secret, all this information, you need to go to your Azure and then create app registrations and provide the API permissions. Okay, so how you can do that? Let's see that. So for this, there are different prerequisites. So now we are moving that how you can create those prerequisites here. Now the first thing which you do here is that you go to Azure and create an app registration. So I have created an app which is called F&O Copilot. Now once you will create that, you will automatically find the application client ID, object ID, and the tenant ID which were required in the previous one. So if you go back, you would see that there was tenant ID and application ID which you would be creating here. So that is the first configuration you do. So you create a app registration F&O Copilot or anything, whatever the name you would like to. Now once this app registration is done, you need to also create a certificate and secret for this. And then what you need to do, you need to click on the certificate and secret within this app registration which you created. And once you do that, it will provide you the secret ID and the value for this, which you can also copy and keep it with yourself. The key thing here is when you are creating these things and when you have from the previous screen the client ID and all those details, and here also the client secrets, all these you can copy and keep it to your OneNote, because once you save it, sometimes it is not possible to copy at a later stage. Okay, so you created app registration, you have client ID, tenant ID, then you have client secret ID which you got created here. Now this will be used further. Now once that is done, the next thing which you need to do is you need to provide the API permission for this app registration which you created. And what is that permission? That it should be able to connect with your Dynamics 365 ERP. So you will go to the API permission within that app registration F&O Copilot, and then click on the add permission, and you need to add these three permissions like AX full access and all these details, and that needs to be created here. Once that is done, you can save those details, and then you are done with the configuration what is required in your Azure portal. Now by now we created this app registration, client secret, the API permissions, but we haven't told that this will be used in which environment. So we need to connect with our Dynamics 365 environment. Now to do so, what you need to do is that you need to navigate to the next finance and operation and map these things. So what you will do, you will go to the system admin, and under the system admin in finance and operation, you will find Microsoft Entra ID application. And there the app registration which you created in Azure, you will map it here with the client ID which you have got from there. And that is why it is important that you keep a copy of that client ID here. So you put it here and then map it, and then also the user ID who will be managing that application. So now by now, if you see, you created app registration, you created client secret, you given the API permission, and now you connected that app with your finance and operation. But now one of the key thing which is missing here is that app registration knows the connection of F&O, but now these both are not connected to the Power Platform virtual entity source. So now what you need to do, that you need to go back to that specific screen which we were in the beginning in the environment setting for the Power Platform. So now if you remember this, once we do Azure app registration and environment connection with the finance and operation, all those details now you have to map it here. So your app registration was connected to F&O, and both of them now is connected with this Power Platform Admin Center environment setting to your virtual entity data source. So you provide the URL, tenant ID, application ID, secret ID, which you have created there. And then by doing this, now system will be able to understand and use these virtual entities to the Dynamics 365 environment and fetch the data or give you the option to enable them. Okay. Now, once that is done, we are done with our configurations. So all these configuration which we have just now discussed are available in your environment, and now you are good to go with accessing your virtual entities and enabling your virtual entities. So now let's look at one simple demo for this. So in that demo, what we will do, now we will use which we require. So let's say the vendor, customer, inventory. Then we will see how we can view those virtual entities, and then see how we can connect those virtual entity as a knowledge source in Copilot Studio, and see a sample of querying that data from F&O. So that is the key thing which we are going to discuss now in our demo. Now, once that configuration is done, you are here again, Power Platform environment settings. And here what you can do, you can click on this advanced find, and here you will find all the virtual entities which are available and you can enable. Now, one of the key thing is this is a new interface, so you can switch to the classic interface as well to look at the virtual entities to enable for your use case. So once you do that, you will have this screen, and now here you can find out your required virtual entities which you need. So you can click on look for available finance and operation entities. Now here you can identify by different criteria. So maybe let's say we go with, then let's say I can say contains or begin with or whatever to find that entity. So I can click on hand, or let's say if we go with let's say, yeah, let's go with on hand itself. So if I select this, and then I can click on the results, and what it is going to give me that all the entities which has that name, and whichever is required which I feel will have the data for me, I can just select and enable that. Now if you see, you have all the entities here. So now whichever entity is close to what you are looking for, you can click on that. And now this is where you click on this enable this. So if you want to make it visible for you to query the data or fetch that information from that entity, you click on that. And then also you enable whether you want to refresh it, like whenever there is a change and there is a new data. So if you want to refresh that, you can enable this. And once that is done, you can just do the save and close. And similarly, you can do this activity for all the virtual entities from the finance and operations which you want to enable the data for. So now once that is done, how do you know that whether this table is being or the entity is being enabled? So now for that, what you can do, you can switch it to your make.powerapps.com, and there you will find all the tables here, and you can click on the tables, and then you can just try to search whichever table you have enabled. So let's say if I go ahead and look for on hand table. So I can just see whether that table is there or not. So if you see, I have inventory on hand by site on an inventory. This ERP, MS ERP is something which is you should look for as a prefix, which are related with the ERP, ERP like a Dynamics F&O. Similarly, I can look for other thing, like I can look for, let's say, customer entity if I have enabled. So I can find out the customers as well, which are available. So similarly, vendor, if I am querying the vendor data and so on. So by doing so, you should have all the information, all the virtual entities which you require for this. Okay. So once that is done, now you are good to go and connect this with your Copilot Studio. Now I am into my Copilot Studio where I can see my all the agents. Now how you look for agent, what the basics are there. Request you to go and watch our previous videos. So I go to agents here and I'm going to use the default agent which we already have for Copilot Studio within the finance and operation, and let's try to add the knowledge source in that. Now currently, if you remember, when you go to your finance and operation, it does just gives you the basic information from MS Learn and all. But now let's see if we want to add some more information, how we can add here. So for that, you need to go to knowledge, and here in the knowledge, you need to create the add knowledge. Now add knowledge is basically in Copilot Studio is to connect with the different knowledge sources. Now you might have those knowledge sources from the third-party application like a Salesforce, ServiceNow, SAP, or SQL data, or you can create, you can connect with your existing, with your finance and operation or the Dataverse, right? Now here you also have a specific knowledge source available, Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. You can go and fetch connect those tables from Dataverse, or if you click on this will give you the specific list of data virtual entities available within that knowledge source, Dynamics Finance and Operation knowledge source. And here, if you will try to find those virtual entities, you will find them, and then you can just select them and then say that, okay, I want to add that to my source. So you can click on the add to the source. I think I have already added multiple virtual entities as the data source here. But if you do this, it will get added to your knowledge source here. Now, if you see this, it has come here. Now we are not building any more configuration within the agent, but let's see the source which we have added. Is Copilot able to fetch that information or not? Okay. Now, but before I do that, what I need to do, I need to publish this Copilot Studio, the agent which I have, and I can click on the published here. Now this has been published. Now I can test this agent by clicking on this test here, or this is my default Copilot Studio. Copilot is the agent for the finance and operations. So we will try to fetch the information from both the places for this thing. So let's try from the studio first, and then we can go to the finance and operation environment to fetch this. Now if you see, I have a query here that what is the total on hand available quantity for item 8001. So it is going and trying to identify that information, and it has gone to this knowledge source and it is telling total on hand inventory for item 8001 is 2452 quantity, right? Now we can do more things here. We need to configure a lot of other things, but let's try to have another example here. Like if I want to identify any customer information. So now I have asked that how many total customer accounts are there. So it is saying 330 customer accounts are available based on this. Now I can ask about any specific customer as well here. And now if you see, I have asked like, can you give me the address of customer account US001, and it has fetched that address and provided me the information. And just remember, all these things is even without writing any single code, any single configuration in my Copilot Studio. I'm just added the knowledge source and I'm using the natural language to ask these questions, and it is able to provide all this information. Now you might say that, oh, do I need to just use the Copilot Studio to query this? But no, you can go and ask the same information in the finance and operations now. Now I am in finance and operation. I just want to show you the comparison. I have opened that customer and see this is the address which this customer has, and this is what our Copilot Studio also has fetched and provided us without even login to the application. Now let's say if I want to use this the default Copilot icon here on the top, it will connect with this same agent which I was testing out, and let's try to ask the same question here and see what answer we get it here. And now if you see, I asked that what is total quantity for same query. It is also again telling me total on hand quantity for item this is 2452. Now I can ask, okay, what is the quantity in warehouse 1 or warehouse 2 or whatever it is, right? Now let's try to ask the same question which we asked for how many customer accounts. So it should give me the same result here as well. And I can ask that query, and then I can ask the specific customer address. Now, again, if you see, it is saying there are 330 customer which are there. And then now I can go and possibly ask the same question which I asked here and say that, can you give me the address of this specific customer? So it can provide me the same customer address which is there. Now it is, if you see one thing which it has done, it is giving two different addresses. But if you look at first one is coming from vendor entity, one is from the second. So US 001, it has found two records with the customer, with the vendor both, and it is able to give me both the addresses here. Now, of course, we need to now maybe refine our agent or create the agent based on these different knowledge sources as an use case to define a proper business scenario. But the idea of this blog or the video was to explain you that how you can connect your F&O data sources to the Copilot Studio and you can query the data. Now, in the next blog, what we would try to do is that we will try to build some custom agent on F&O data or some business use cases for the finance and operations and see how that works. That's it for this video. Hope you liked it, and if yes, go and watch the other previous parts and see you in the next one. Thank you.